So today we're going to talk about the mark of the beast, and I'm going to cover each passage in Revelation that talks about the mark of the beast. So we're going to have it completely covered in this video, and all of them are the rooted word translation. I took today's Saturday, and I translated all of these, including the surrounding verses. So we've got the pericope, the passage that's bounded by the sense where it seems to start and where it seems to end. That's the passage that I translated, okay, in each case. And we've got chapter 13, 14, 15, a verse from chapter 16, some from 19, and one from 20. So let's get right into it and figure out what this is all about. I just want to say before I switch over that we're going to find out that a lot of this insanity about the mark of the beast, all of this anxiety about all these different things is unfounded. Okay? It doesn't mean that we're not to worry about it. Absolutely, we are to watch and worry about that. Okay? But not in anxiety. So I want to show you we need to have knowledge about it, of what God told us in his testimony. Not what these English translations have put out, because frankly, I'll show you where every single one of them, no matter how old they are, is wrong. So we're going to get the truth here straight from the Greek, and you're going to get to see that. Let's get rolling. Okay, so here we are, mark of the beast. And you've got, here's the word mark. It's translated mark. And it is charagma, right? And charagma is an etching or an engraving. So if we think of it this way, I translated it engraving because that's much more accurate. So let's go ahead and dig right into chapter 13, verse 16. And he is making all, the small and the great, and those fulfilled in this life, and those who from a fall terrify to the point of wanting to fly away, and the unrestrained, and the slaves, in order that they may give to themselves charagmata, engravings, upon the grasping palm of their hand, or upon the place in the midst of their face. And in order that absolutely no one is being able to gather in the market, or trade or barter, if not at all the one having the charagma, the engraving, the name of the hunted game animal, or the number of its name. In this same spot the wisdom is being, the one having intellect, use pebbles to enumerate and number the number of the hunted game animal, for a number of a human being is being, and the number of him is 666, or these three Greek letters. All right, so it actually says 666, then it has these three enigmatic Greek letters, one of them which is defunct. Okay, and you'll see this here in my note. The first one is the 22nd letter in the Greek alphabet, the next one is the 14th, and then there's an obsolete letter which is actually for a word that's 4742, stigma. Okay, that's what it represents. And so that's from the Greek alphabet. So these three letters usually are associated with numbers, which is 666. So you have not only in the text 666, but also through these symbols, these three letters. Some suspect that those are the three letters that will be engraven on the hand or on the face, in the middle of the face. We don't know. We don't know. So you can see that the stigma, and I mean we've got stigma in English, right? Stigma is a bad thing. It's something that's unwarranted, unjust, right? That someone's putting on us some view. And it's staying and it's not letting us change and grow from that, right? Well, stigma, here it is, to stick or prick. A mark incised or punched for recognition of ownership. All right, so forget the figuratively scar of service or mark. Okay, it may also serve in that way, but we never take into account the figurative translation. only the literal. Okay, so it's a mark that's incised or punched to recognize who you own. That's 13:16 through 13:18. Now, what is it saying? Because you're probably sitting there going, Ron, this is too tough. Okay, let me read it again. I'm going to explain it. And he is making all. The word making is making or doing, right? But in this case, doing all doesn't make sense in this case. So he's making all, the small and the great, and those fulfilled in this life. It's a word often translated rich, right? But this is broader than rich. And those who from a fall, terrified to the point of wanting to fly away, usually translated poor. But again, the word is much broader than our sense of poor. And the unrestrained, translated free in English, but it's not accurate. It's too narrow. It literally means unrestrained. And the slaves, in order that they may give to themselves, karagmata. That's the thing that shocked me, was that that's not in any of the texts whatsoever across all of history of the English translations. It doesn't accurately, none of them accurately says what it actually says in the Greek, that they are giving it to themselves. They're made to give it to themselves, like convinced, coerced, and we'll see that they are actually tricked into it by the false prophet. The false prophet has a very specific role in the people taking the karagmata. This, you don't hear this anywhere, and yet it's here in the text. It's here in the text. And the reason is because these people who are so fascinated and obsessed with the end times do not have the Holy Spirit of God. They're not listening to God. Otherwise, God would have revealed this to them in the text. So, he's making, the beast is making, the beast, right, the hunted game animal, is making all, no matter who they are, to give themselves the karagmata upon the grasping palm of their hand or upon the place in the midst of their face. There's a word that they translate right, like the right hand, right? But that word doesn't mean right. If you actually take it to the root, just one step down, what is the root of that word? Then you find out that it's receiving. The part of the hand that you receive with. It's not that part. It's this part. It doesn't have to do with left and right. It has to do with what part of the hand do you receive with. And the word hand itself means grasping. So both the word hand indicates this part, but especially since they put also that other word of this based off of receiving, it's referring to the palm in particular. So the palm of the hand receiving and grasping. That's where that karagmata will be put. They will put it themselves. It's an engraving. They're going to engrave on their palm or on their face, somewhere in the middle. It might be forehead, might be here on the nose, who knows where. But it's going to be in the midst of the face. So I'm telling you exactly what it says here so that you can get rid of all of this extraneous garbage that you hear from these end time obsessed crazy people. Okay? And verse 17, and in order that absolutely no one is being able to gather in the market or trade or barter. They can't even gather in the marketplace to buy and sell. They can't even barter or trade unless they have the karagmata of the name of the hunted game animal or the number of its name. They say the number of his name, but it's a hunted game animal. It's neuter. The actual noun is neuter. It's not even masculine or feminine. And yet they translate his name, but it's its name. It's not a he. It's an it. It's an animal. Not only that, the actual Greek noun is neuter. So they're all incorrect by translating it his name. In this same spot, in this same place, The wisdom is being. The one having intellect, using pebbles, should be using pebbles to enumerate. It literally means to use pebbles, that verb. Where they translate it calculate, right? Okay, calculate's okay, but let's get specific. Using pebbles to enumerate the number of the hunted game animal. For a number of a human being is being. It's a little difficult because you got being and being, right? But the being first one's part of the word human being. We don't use person there because person, God is three persons. So when we say a person, well, that could mean God, the Father, or God the Son, or God the Holy Spirit, when this specifically means human beings, right? So for a number of a human being is being, and the number of him is 666, or this three-letter mark representing 666. It's not going to be the numbers, the Arabic numerals 666. No, it's not. If it's going to be any kind of representation of that number, it's going to be these three Greek letters because it's specifically in the text as a representative of that number. So if it's any mark, it's going to be that X and then that kind of squiggly line and then looks like an inverted S, right? It's bigger on the top and smaller on the bottom. So that's chapter 13, what it says about the mark of the beast. I hope you've learned something through that right there. Let's go to 14. Verse 9. And another angel, a third, goes the same way as them, laying forth in a great disclosing tone. If anyone kisses like a dog licking his master's hand, the hunted game animal, and the icon of him, and takes a charygma upon the midst of his face or upon his grasping hand. Also, he will imbibe, like to absorb is what it actually means, but we use it for drinking, like alcohol. When you drink it so much you're saturated. Also, he will imbibe from out of the wine of the passion that breathes hard and rushes into sacrifice from God. In the text, it always says the God, right? But we translate it as God in English, right? So, anyone who kisses like a dog licking his master's hand, the hunted game animal, and the icon of him, his icon, and takes a charygma upon the midst of his face or upon his grasping hand, we saw specifically where in 13 on the palm, also he will imbibe from out of the wine of the passion that breathes hard and rushes into sacrifice from God. The God is angry with him and is going to sacrifice him, going to kill them. The one mingled undiluted in the cup of his desire to reach forth, and he will be tortured to the ground and underfoot in fire and flashing sulfur in the face of the terrifyingly clean angels and in the face of the lambkin. Now, if you watch my other videos on Revelation, you'll notice this word lamb, that they translated lamb, is incorrect. It's a diminutive, which properly is translated lambkin. Lambkin is a little lamb, like Mary had a little lamb, right? Little lamb is what we say in modern English, but lambkin is technically the English word for it. So we translate it lambkin, okay? So, this is tough because it's all about God's anger and his passion for justice. The one mingled undiluted in the cup of his desire to reach forth. Okay? So this passion is mingled, all this stuff is mingled, undiluted, not watered down, not weakened at all. And that's the thing that modern Christians don't get. They want to bring in things from the culture about God is love, and they don't understand what love means. Or they'll bring in these things, that we're not supposed to judge, therefore God can't be judgmental. His mercy has to triumph over everything, and no one's going to hell. Okay? There's a Bishop Barton, I think his name is, that sometimes I see his videos pop up in the suggested for me, and I stop watching him because he believes that hell will be empty. So I don't listen to him. He's a heretic. He doesn't believe the testimony of God. So this was very eye-opening in this verse, because it says that he will be tortured. This is the one who has taken the charagmata, right? He will be tortured to the ground and underfoot in fire and flashing sulfur. It's not just sulfur, it's flashing sulfur. It's very specific. In fire and flashing sulfur, in the face of the terrifyingly clean angels. They will be watching. And in the face of the lambkin, Jesus, as the Lamb of God, will also be watching their torture. And the smoke of the torture of them, to the ground and underfoot, into ages of ages, is pacing out upward, and not at all are they holding a pausing relief of a day and night. The ones kissing like a dog licking his master's hand, the hunted game animal, and the icon of him, and if anyone is taking the kerygma of his name. All right? So I know it's difficult in English because this is not the common English translation. This is the precise translation. So this is precisely as it says it in the Greek. Okay? So I'm going to try to interpret this for you or reword it for you. And the smoke of the torture, and the smoke of their torture, that torture which is to the ground and underfoot, is pacing out upward. It's like rising gradually, step by step by step, into the ages of ages, as far out as you can imagine. And not at all, and they will not at all have any kind of pause for relief, day or night. Who? The ones kissing, like a dog licking his master's hand, that hunted game animal, and his icon, like picture, or represent. It could be a medallion, it could be anything. Icon, his icon, and anyone who's taking the kerygma, the engraving of his name. Verse 12. In the same spot, the humble remaining under of the terrifyingly clean ones is the ones guarding the injunctions of the God and the one persuaded from Jesus. Okay? Let me check one thing here. So, verse 12, it's saying that so what does it mean to remain humbly under, right? Because it's talking about that. The remaining humbly under of the terrifyingly clean ones is, so in other words, if you want to remain humbly under, this is what you do. You become one who's guarding the injunctions of God, meaning doing, right? When it says guarding the injunctions of God, means doing the commands of God, right? Fulfilling the commands of God, completing them, doing them, watching carefully the commands of God, doing and not doing, right? Don't do the things it says don't do, and do the things it says to do. And you must be persuaded from Jesus. It's both. If you've just got one, then you don't match this, verse 12. You don't match it. You're not remaining humbly under. You're not one of the terrifyingly clean ones. You must have both equally. You must be keeping the commands of God carefully and also remain persuaded in Jesus. Those both together. Faith and works. Faith without works is dead. He says so. This also says the same thing. You must have both. That is what it means to remain humbly under. Remain humbly under. You might be doing the commands of God, but you might not be persuaded in Jesus Christ, which means you're not humble and you're not remaining under. You might believe in Jesus Christ. Hello. You might believe in Jesus Christ, but not be doing his commands. Jesus said, if you love me, you will obey my commands. Plural commands. Because some like to say, oh, yeah, but all his commands are in one command, which is believe in Jesus. No, it's not. John says this because you cannot obey all his commands and yet not believe in Jesus and think you're going to be saved. But the same way, the other way around. You can't believe that by believing in Jesus and not doing what he commands, you're going to be saved. Because you don't love Jesus. If you love me, you will obey my commands. That's what he says. This also says that remaining humbly under of the terrifyingly clean ones is keeping the commands of God and remaining persuaded in Jesus. And I hear this is verse 13, and I hear a disclosing tone from out of the sky laying forth, you must write, supremely blessed are, hold on a minute, the dead ones. What happened here? All right. Supremely blessed are the dead ones, those in the Lord dying off from just now, from now on, right? The Spirit is laying forth truly in order that they may pause with relief from out of the chopping of them. But the actions of them will go the same way as them amidst them. Now there's a lot of them in here, all right? It's a little difficult to understand. This one's not so critical to understanding the mark of the beast. But this is kind of tied in with what's going on here of the testimony of Jesus, and we'll find out as we go on. So you must write, supremely blessed are the dead ones, those in the Lord dying off of just now. So anyone who's dying off in the Lord, anyone who's in the Lord and dying off from now on is supremely blessed. From then on, from the time he wrote this. From off of just now, the Spirit is laying forth, truly in order that they may pause with relief from out of the chopping of them, but the actions of them will go the same way. So they're going to have that pause of relief that those who are being tortured do not have day or night. There's a contrast there. Because it says, and not at all are they holding a pausing relief of a day and night, the ones kissing like a dog licking the master's hand, the hunted game animal, and the icon of him, etc. Right? And now 2 verses later, it says that those who are supremely blessed, who die off in the Lord from now on, from then on, right? That they may pause with relief from out of the chopping of them, out of their chopping, right? It's like their toiling, their struggle. But the actions of them will go the same way as them amidst them. So their actions, their works, their deeds, it's all the same word, will follow them, will go with them along the same path to eternal life. All right, so you're getting the meat here because this is real meat. We're actually looking at the mark of the beast, right? And what happens to those people who take the mark of the beast? Let's go on to chapter 15. Verse 2. And I see in that manner a glassy sea having been mingled with fire, and those conquering from out of the hunted game animal, and from out of the icon of him, and from out of the number of the name of him, which have stood all about the glassy sea, holding lyres or harps, they're like small harps, of God. So this idea of angels with harps is a little correct, right? Except it's not angels. It's those who have conquered the hunted game animal. And out of his icon, and out of the number of his name, they have conquered. And they've stood all about the glassy sea holding these miniature harps of God. Verse 3. And they are chanting the chant of Moses. It's literally chant, not song. It's not the generic word for song. It's specifically chant. And it's not a general religious composition either. It's a chant. And they are chanting the chant of Moses, the slave of God, and the chant of the lambkin. Notice the chant of Moses and the chant of the lambkin. They're not singing two of them. They're singing one. And these are the words. Great and captivating are the actions of you, Lord, the God, the all-vigorous one. Equitable and true are your roads, the sovereign of the ethnicities. This is literally, technically, exactly precise. And especially here, more than anywhere. This is the song of the lambkin, the chant of the lambkin. Great and captivating are the actions of you, Lord, the God, the all-vigorous one. Equitable and true are your roads. You follow the road of God. It is equitable and true. And if you get on a road and you are not being equitable or true, you're on the wrong road. You know it is not the road of God. You know it is not. It's not the road of God. If you get on that road and you start being inequitable or false, you know it is not the road of God. The sovereign of the ethnicities, all nations, not nations really, ethnicities. Doesn't have to do with governments. Verse 4, who may not at all fear you, Lord, and may not at all render glory to the name of you, that alone are terrifyingly clean, that alone the ethnicities will arrive and will kiss like a dog licking his master's hand in the face of you, that your equitable deeds are made apparent. You say, what? That's the same phrase they use for the hunted game animal, the beast. Yeah, but he doesn't deserve it. God deserves it. Who may not at all fear you, Lord? Those Christians who say that we no longer fear God are liars. They do not know God. Do not listen to anything they have to say that's spiritual. They have no idea who God is. They don't know Jesus Christ. That's only in their imagination. If they say they do not fear God and no one has to fear God, no, they're not saved. Who may not at all fear you, Lord, and may not at all render glory to the name of you, to your name. That alone, that means you alone, that alone are terrifyingly clean. That all the ethnicities will arrive and will kiss like a dog licking his master's hand in the face of you, that your equitable deeds are made apparent, that they will be revealing his equitable deeds. Chapter 16, verse 2. And the first goes off from and pours out of his vial into the land, and a worthless dragging comes to be, and toilsome harm upon the human beings. Those holding the kerygma, the engraving of the hunted game animal, and the ones kissing like a dog licking his master's hand, his icon. I'm going to move his icon around here because it actually fits into the middle of that phrase. And the ones kissing his icon like a dog licking his master's hand. Okay, that seems obvious. That pain, that suffering coming out of that vial into the land will be causing harm, toilsome harm, only on those human beings who have the kerygma and have kissed the icon, his icon. Chapter 19, verse 19. I see the hunted game animal and the sovereigns of the earth and their militaries having been led together to do warfare amidst the one sitting down accordingly upon the horse and amidst his military. Verse 20. And the hunted game animal is squeezed, and the midst of him the false prophet, the one making the marks, in the face of him in which marks he leads astray, whose those taking the kerygma, I misspelled kerygma, of the hunted game animal, and kissing like a dog licking his master's hand, the icon of him, these two are thrown alive into the lake of the fire, being set afire in sulfur. And those left are killed off in the saber of the one sitting down accordingly upon the horse, the one coming out from out of his mouth, and all the birds were fed from out of their bare flesh. Those who were left. The hunted game animal squeezed, and the midst of him, and in the midst of him, should say in the midst of him, the false prophet, the one making the marks. In the face of him, in which marks, in the face of him, in which marks he leads astray, in which marks that he makes, in which marks that he makes, he leads astray those taking the kerygma of the hunted game animal. So this indicates the false prophet will actually be the one who's making the marks, but it says that they will be taking it themselves. So maybe he will physically be making them, or mystically be making them so that they appear. I don't think so, though, because it's very specific about engraving and puncturing in the sharp instrument. I think that the people are going to be convinced to actually do the engraving themselves. By the text, it looks that way. By the way, the kind of words that are used is so physical. And yet this false prophet is involved here in convincing them, the one making the marks. So he's somehow involved with the individual making the mark on his own hand. Maybe he's holding his hand. Maybe they're doing it together. Maybe he's holding this hand, the other one's doing the mark, right? But it says that he's making the mark and he's taking the mark. So maybe the one is holding his hand out. This is more what it sounds like. The one taking the mark is holding his hand out, taking the mark. And the false prophet is the one making the mark. So that's literally what's being said here. In which marks, in these marks, he leads astray those taking the kerygma of the hunted game animal and kissing his icon like a dog licking his master's hand. These two, the hunted game animal and the false prophet, are thrown alive into the lake of the fire, being set afire in sulfur. And those left are killed off. All right, let's look at chapter 20, verse 4. This is the last one. And I see thrones, and they sit accordingly upon them, and a distinguishing for decision is given to them. And the souls of those having been beheaded through the witness of Jesus and through the word of the God, and which some, not kissing the hunted game animal like a dog licking his master's hand, not even his icon, and not taking the kerygma, engraving, upon the midst of their faces and upon their grasping hand, and they live and reign amidst the Christ the 1,000 years. And this they is the first they, the one sitting on the throne who are judging. Okay? So there should be a comma there, just to distinguish that we switch theys to the first they again. All right? All right. So this is saying that these who are sitting on the throne did not kiss the hunted game animal, did not kiss his icon, did not take the kerygma. I need to change that. It's not kerygma. I think in English we actually have a word, kerygma, which represents that, but kerygma. So they didn't take that. They didn't take the engraving. So now you know more particular. It's not a microchip that's put into the skin. It's not a microchip. It's specifically an engraving on the palm of the hand or amidst the face. So it could be anywhere in here on the face, but somewhere in the midst of the face. It's not out on the edges of the face. That's very specific, meta. It's in the midst of. the face. But it's not necessarily forehead. It could be in here. So, but remember that if it's going to be a symbol, it's most likely going to be those 3 Greek letters that I showed you earlier. Now that you have this knowledge, now you can be watching for it intelligently. And things that don't even come close to matching it, just stop listening to the person. Okay? If someone's saying something that doesn't even come close to what you've just heard here is in the Greek text, just ignore them. Just mark them off and say, no, I'm not going to listen to them anymore. And may the Lord bless you as you seek Him with all your heart.
Remember to subscribe down below and like the video and share it on your Facebook and other social media. And then make a comment, whether a question or a comment. We read all of them, and we try to respond to all. Get on over to our website, The Rooted Word, and start reading the translation and also the articles we've posted. It's at therootedword.com, therootedword.com. And may the Lord bless you as you seek Him with all your heart.